welcome to another spectacular installment of Weekend Update. From very high above all the puerile and vacuous forms of Wyoming mainstream media, this is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Saturday. Normally, we wouldn't have breaking news over the weekend. Well, I mean, you do if you have Fox News or one of those 24-hour news cycle programs, but it's pretty rare on Cowboy State Politics that we have breaking news over the weekend. But on Thursday at Cheyenne South High School, a few students informed their parents of a flyer that's hanging around the high school next to several classrooms. It clearly promotes the Gay Straight Alliance at Cheyenne South High School and depicts two QR codes that students can take to participate in a confidential survey about gender pronouns. This story was first broke by a parental rights organization called Parents Defending Education. This is the same group that represented the Rock Springs parents who found out that the school was attempting to gender transition their daughter to become a boy without their knowledge. Your tax dollars at work, indeed. Now you might say, what's the big deal about a survey? The kids don't have to take it, and it appears to be entirely voluntary. Well, the issue is that it's absolutely against the law in most cases. The Protection of Pupils' Rights Amendment clearly prohibits the administration of a survey without the knowledge of the parents. According to the Parents Defending Education website, and I quote, several concerned parents reached out to PDE with screenshots of a poster from the GSA Club, that's the Gay Straight Alliance at South High School, that includes a QR code that connects students to a survey. Screenshots of the poster, the QR code, and the survey questions are below. And of course, I'll post the link to this article at cowboystatepolitics.com so you can check it out for yourself. This way of administering a survey appears to potentially circumvent the Protection of Pupils' Rights Amendment as well as state law. Remember, I said in most cases this whole survey business is against the law. In order to access the survey, a person must have a school email address. This makes it virtually impossible for parents to access the survey. There's nothing like hiding what's going on at school from all the parents, eh? Anyway, it's very clear that this survey is sponsored by the school and is done in conjunction with the group formerly known as the Gay Straight Alliance, who now calls themselves the Gender Sexuality Alliance. I have no idea why these people are allowed inside a school building in the first place, but that's another matter indeed. That the survey can only be accessed using a school-issued email address is evidence enough that the school's in bed with this Gender Sexuality Alliance. Again, the flyer and all of the screenshots from the survey are available at the website cowboystatepolitics.com. But the flyer says on its front, this classroom is a safe place. And then below it, it depicts an LGBTQZXPWD flag that says, this classroom welcomes anyone and everyone. I should hope so. All classrooms should welcome all students, but that doesn't have anything to do with who they decide they want to go to bed with. And secondly, why are high school students being indoctrinated into thinking that they have to go to bed with anyone? And third, why is the school involved in it? All good questions. Now, below the picture of the LGBTQZXPWD flag are two QR codes, which, if you scan them, you're taken to the survey. Now, of course, you and I can't access the survey because we don't have a school-issued email address. Only the students and teachers do, which again is clear evidence that the Laramie County School District and the school itself made an overt attempt to hide it from parents. A little bit later in the program, I have an interview with a substitute teacher named Gene Clementson. He's the guy that snapped a picture of that flyer that allowed it to become public. After this whole ball got rolling Thursday morning, another parent gained access to the survey, which allowed Parents Defending Education to make the contents of the survey public. When accessed, the survey reveals a list of 10 questions, and at the top of it, it says, and I quote, GSA reporting. Now, GSA, of course, refers to Gender Sexuality Alliance, formerly known as the Gay Straight Alliance, and it says, quote, this form and your name will only be reported to Ms., and then it's redacted, so that's the name of the teacher, and the GSA. Now, wait a minute. This means that the Gender Sexuality Alliance, in conjunction with the Laramie County School District, is collecting personal information about students. So let me read the whole thing to you. It says, this form and your name will only be reported to Ms., redacted, and the Gender Sexuality Alliance for information to improve our school environment and equity at South High School. This form will collect your email, but will not be shared unless you are comfortable. End quote. Let me read you some of the questions. Question number 1. If you're comfortable, what is your name? Preferred or legal? And then number 2, are you a member of the Gender Sexuality Alliance, formerly the Gay Straight Alliance? Sarah Burlingame would be so proud. Number 3, do you feel safe and accepted at South High School? Question number 4, do your teachers use the correct pronouns, preferred names in class? Question number 5, do classmates and your peers use the correct names and pronouns when referring to you? Numero 6, that's a little Spanish lingo for you. Do you use the correct pronouns and names for others? 7, if there is an event of bullying or harassment, please report that here. Now that's just fantastic. Unofficially reporting somebody because you don't like them or because they refuse to use your desired pronouns. And number 8, how could South High be improved to make the environment more equitable and accepting of you? Don't blame me for the bad grammar. These people were focused on identity instead of English. And that brings up another point. This form was concocted by the Laramie County School District and the Gender Sexuality Alliance, and they didn't get their grammar right. Shocking, I know. There's another part of this whole survey, and it's entitled Preferred Name Change on PBIS Rewards. It kind of begs the question of, what is PBIS? I'll get to that in just a second, but here's what the form says, and I quote, please fill out this form to change your preferred name on PBIS Rewards to better represent your identity. This is an effort to switch to preferred names so PBIS is more gender-affirming and inclusive. We are sincerely hoping that these changes stick over time, but if you find that they don't, please reach out to any trusted adult who can inform Mrs. redacted, of changes that need to be made. And then there's a couple of questions. My name as it appears in PBIS Rewards currently. And then number 2, how would I prefer that my name appear on PBIS Rewards? Lovely. Now don't forget, parents are unable to see any of this stuff. So what exactly is PBIS? Well, that stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support Program. Here's what their website says about this program. PBIS Rewards is an affordable school-wide PBIS management system that assists schools in their Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support Program. The multi-device platform makes it easy to continuously recognize students for meeting behavioral expectations from anywhere in the school, not just in the classroom. And with added features like referral tracking. Isn't that great? Check in and check out and teacher reward system, PBIS Rewards, helps to foster accountability and fidelity in your PBIS program. So not only are we trying to assess adherence to some socialized Marxist agenda of making everybody abide by gender pronouns, now we're tracking it and using prizes to reinforce that behavior. Isn't that just fantastic? And keep in mind, you, the parent, don't know anything about it. And even if you wanted to, there's no way that you can access it. That this is occurring at Cheyenne South High School should come as absolutely no surprise to anyone. It was only 2 years ago where Cowboy State Politics obtained a survey or quiz that was distributed by a social studies teacher after he showed the movie Growing Up Trans in his classroom. I first told you about this in an episode entitled, It Used to Be Called Abuse. If you've forgotten that episode, here's a little soundbite from it just to refresh your memory as to some of the material that is being shown to Cheyenne South High School students. At the time this video was made, the boy that you're going to hear speaking was 9 years old. 9. There is no way that you're going to be able to convince me that at 9 years old, a child understands the lifelong ramifications of lopping off body parts. As disturbing as this is, here you go.
I transitioned when I was 6 or 7 to more of a girl, and now I'm almost completely female. And 2nd grade was the last year of Lamb, and this year I changed my name officially. So, I've changed my name, my clothes, my room, and my pronouns. And that's really all you need, except for the 5th one that I still need, surgery and medicine, to help me look like a girl.
Yeah, that 5th one that I still need, lopping off body parts and cross-sex hormones. But pay no attention to that. That's just a small part of it. Well, anyway, that was 2 years ago, so it should come as no surprise whatsoever that Cheyenne South High School is still doing this sort of thing. As usual, they're attempting to do it without the knowledge or consent of parents. And actually, it's worse this time because parents can't even access the information without a school-issued email address. These kids aren't confused. They're kids. What you're doing is indoctrinating them, and it's still called abuse. After the break, we're going to talk with the substitute teacher that took a picture of that flyer at Cheyenne South High School. He'll tell us about Cheyenne South High School and what happened to him at Cheyenne East High School. So we'll do that after the break. But first, an absolutely outrageous profit timeout. Cowboy State Politics is brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for an outbuilding or a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger like a roping arena or a gigantic warehouse for your business, the two guys you need to talk to are Nick and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They are the experts in metal building construction. They've been doing it longer than anybody else around, and they definitely do a much better job than anybody else. So, doesn't matter what type of building you're thinking about, give Nick and Jesse a call. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out at their website, mortonbuildings.com. Are you thinking of getting out of communist California and moving to a red state? Well, if you are, the best person to talk to is Rebecca Bextel at Compass Real Estate. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. She's an expert in the real estate market. She sold ranches and homes all across the state of Wyoming. You should really give her a call. Now, if you're one of these people that's moved to Jackson, mistakenly believing that you've moved to a red part of the country and you've decided to sell out and actually move to Wyoming, well, in that case, Rebecca's your gal too. One more time, her phone number is 307-699-3519. The following advertisement was paid for by Reed Reisner for Senate.
I'm Reed Reisner, and I'm running for United States Senate because our politicians have forgotten what's important. They spend billions protecting borders in Europe and do nothing about our border. You deserve better. Wyoming deserves better. That's why I'm running, to serve you. Join me, and let's send new blood and a strong backbone to D.C. before it's too late. Go to reedreisner.com to learn more and join the fight.
If you haven't checked out cowboystatepolitics.com lately, I've made some changes to the website. Now you can watch the live program. That's what I said. Watch the live program every weekday morning right from cowboystatepolitics.com. You just click on the live tab and it'll take you right to it. Or if you prefer to go to YouTube, just go to the Cowboy State Politics YouTube page and you can watch it right from there. You can see exactly what's happening in the studio, all the crazy looks on my face from every insane thing that's happening in the media. All of it will be on my version of a Ditto Cam. Make sure you check that out, and as always, don't forget to subscribe and follow the program. That way you can be notified every single time there's a brand new episode of Cowboy State Politics. You can do that at the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. Welcome back to the program. As it relates to Reed Reisner, I'm sure everybody's seen all of the, shall we say, troubles he's been having in the media and all of the response from prominent conservatives across the state of Wyoming. I have my own thoughts on the matter, and we're going to talk about it on Monday's edition of the program. Should be a fun episode. There's lots of misleading stuff to talk about. So we'll do that Monday. Who knows what might happen? I may actually have to agree with Trotsky Wolfson for once. Back to the program. Before the break, we were talking about this survey that was concocted in conjunction with the Laramie County School District and the Gender Sexuality Alliance, formerly known as the Gay Straight Alliance. Thursday, after this whole thing blew up, Stephen Newton, the superintendent of schools for Laramie County School District No. 1, issued a statement. It's pretty much what you would expect. Pay no attention to the guy behind the curtain. But here's what it says, and I quote, Ahem, ahem. Dear LCSD1 parents and guardians, as a valued partner in your child's education, we honor and respect your role as a parent and strive to maintain open and transparent communication. Except, of course, there's nothing that says that anyone has to co-parent with the government. And, by definition, this survey was inaccessible to parents, which means it wasn't open and honest communication. Anyway, this drivel continues. In order to respond to the changing needs of our families, we periodically survey our stakeholders and students. The expected practice in Laramie County School District No. 1 is to communicate with families in advance if we intend to survey students about personal information. The only problem with that is they didn't notify parents and they intentionally kept it from them. Skip a little bit of this garbage. Quote, as part of our district's effort, our principals are reviewing all materials and procedures in our schools to ensure compliance with our expectations, as well as the new statutory requirements, end quote. So we're going to review our policies and procedures, but we're not going to take any action on the survey that was created by the Laramie County School District in conjunction with the Gender Sexuality Alliance, which is a private organization that they allowed into the school. Fantastic. All of this was brought to light by a substitute teacher named Gene Clementson. Last night, I spoke with him on the phone. Here's how he describes the whole situation. Now, the person that took a picture of one of those flyers at Cheyenne South High School is Gene Clementson. Gene, welcome to Cowboy State Politics.
Welcome. Or thank you for having me, I should say.
Well, thank you for giving me a call and letting me know, giving me a little bit more of what's happening down there in Cheyenne. Before we get started, why don't you just quickly tell my audience a little bit about yourself, how you ended up in Wyoming, and then we'll get into the flyer that you found at the school.
Well, as quickly as I can, I moved out of here. I moved out to Wyoming, Cheyenne, from the New York tri-state area, from Newark, New Jersey, which is, as the crow flies, like 20 minutes with no traffic. I moved out here because I was seeing the writing on the wall in terms of literally communism taking over, at least in the New York area, and which, if it happens in New York, it permeates into New Jersey, and it has taken over the entire Northeast from Boston, Massachusetts, all the way down to D.C., if you've been following any of the news there. So in 2020, after the riots and all the chaos happened, I looked at my son who was living with me at the time, and I said, you're welcome to come with me, but I am planning to move out of here. I'm getting out of New Jersey. I'm not going to live like this because it was very clear. The whole area, you can tell your rights, even through history, by where you cannot practice self-defense, meaning you can't own guns and things like that. Things like people getting, and this is not hyperbole, people getting thrown down the stairs in the subway in New York City, people getting pushed in front of trains, people getting what's known as a knockout game, getting punched in the face on the street. And I basically said, before I get hurt or I got to hurt somebody, I got to get out of there. So I did my research, looked around the country. First criteria was that it had to be a red state. So I looked at all the red states across the country. And secondly, it had to be a constitutional carry state. I said I would at least like to have the ability to defend myself fully if need be and not be a victim. So I ended up looking at a bunch of states, narrowed it down to West Virginia and here. And Wyoming obviously won out over West Virginia, and I ended up moving out here. But I was in the teaching business in New Jersey for about 22 years.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So now you've moved to Cheyenne, and you're a substitute teacher, correct?
Yeah, I wanted to try and get my feet wet and see if I really wanted to come back into it after having been away from teaching since 2016. I said, let me see if I really want to come back into it again. Let me see what Cheyenne has to offer. What is the atmosphere like? The administration, just the overall atmosphere of teaching here in the city of Cheyenne / Wyoming.
Right on. Well, I mean, it's I can tell you for a fact, I've done a number of programs on the show about what's happening in Wyoming schools. I always say that whatever's happening in other places of the country, it usually takes 2 to 3-ish years before it shows up here. And we've started to see a lot of what I'll just call indoctrination of various sorts showing up in Wyoming schools recently. And one of them you were kind of a party to. So you show up, tell me the story. You show up in the school and you see this flyer hanging on the wall. How did that all go down?
Well, it's something that I have recognized since I started subbing back in November. I looked around, again, as I said, I wanted to check out, what Wyoming had generally. And I saw a lot in classrooms, in guidance counselors' offices, in different offices with stickers in the window. I was seeing many of these symbolisms saying safe space. I'm a safe person. And they all had the rainbow alphabet group flags in the window.
Right.
Or on posters in classrooms, or on posters outside of the door, but they were pervasive. Walls, doors, windows, they were everywhere in the schools from the middle school level up. So I was seeing these and I was very disappointed because it was what I thought I had left behind in Jersey. I said, nah, this can't be happening in Wyoming, because my understanding is that Wyoming was a little more conservative and had a little more common sense. But I had to remember these were teachers, and across the country, teachers are being hired deliberately because of their left-leaning perspective.
Oh, I think that's a certainty. Now, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how pervasive that is in Wyoming, but specifically in Cheyenne, I've done a couple of stories about some incidents that have happened specifically at Cheyenne South High School, which that's why it didn't surprise me at all that that's where this flyer showed up. So walk me through it. Right, you're just walking down the hallway and you see this flyer and you just whip out your cell phone, or what did you do?
Well, yeah, it was in a classroom. And, I saw it on the wall there, and I said, you know what, let me just take a picture of this, because a newly found friend of mine, I'll say, in Cheyenne, I sent it to he and his wife. I said, hey, what we had talked about previously about this infiltration and indoctrination that's happening across the country, it's not coming to Cheyenne, it's here. So I took a picture of it and I sent it to them. I didn't know that they were going to send it out, but that's still okay. But yeah, I'd seen it regularly. And in fact, a couple of days ago, maybe a week or two ago, I was at South again, and there's another teacher who is in the same area who has the actual flag, a miniature-sized one of the same flag, like
right.
The actual flag, as opposed to like a handmade flyer or something. I have other close friends of mine that I talk to who share the same philosophy, and I had usually in the past would take pictures and send it to them and say, hey, this I'm in this class and this is what's going on. You have to, a very good friend of mine, she's got 3 young grandchildren, three girls, and I tell her constantly, you have to be careful with them when they go to school. I said, because when they leave your possession, you never know who the teacher is.
Right.
And the systems in general are either condoning it, they're afraid to speak out against it, or they're just not directed in that way to understand that this is raw indoctrination. There's no way around it. And just like with any culturally Marxist revolution, color revolution, who do they go after? They don't go after the adults. Who do they go after?
They always go after the kids. Always.
You start them early, you get the indoctrination going early, and you change if depending on the parents, because the parent doesn't necessarily mean that the parents are right thinking either. But
well, in a lot of these, I don't mean to interrupt you, but in a lot of these cases, the parents probably don't even know. Like this flyer, it's very clear from the QR codes that you can't access the information that flyer was trying to convey unless you have a school distributed email address. So,
right.
So it's very clear that poster was meant to keep parents out of it, that only the kids could look at it. And I mean, the questions, and I posted those at my website, cowboystatepolitics.com, but you can read the questions. I mean, it's all about pronouns. Interestingly enough, we just passed a law that makes that flyer illegal. Now, the only difference is the law won't take effect until it's either June 1st or July 1st. But anyway, I mean, they're already violating the law that was just passed in this last legislative session. Now, you had another incident at another high school in Cheyenne. Why don't you tell me about that? Because I think these two are definitely related.
Oh, they're absolutely related, because let me anecdote it as quickly as I can. Is that in any Marxist tyrannical situation, the goal is to separate the children from the parents. So as you were saying with the QR code thing, the state now intercedes in between the parent, where the parent is kept out of it and the parent is villainized for even speaking out against it. But at the situation that I had at East, when I go in, I have a roster. I have an attendance list that is a legal document, because I have to sign my name on it and hand it in.
Right. These are the kids you're responsible for.
Those are the kids that I'm responsible for, and their names, whatever their legal names are on that roster. So if I am calling attendance, those are the names that I'm calling for who is there or who is not there, or who is late, whatever the case may be. So what typically happens is that I will have, and I will say this, I will have a confused child that will come up to me who will try to preempt before I do the attendance and say, well, my name is such and such on the list, but I go by X, Y, and Z. And I politely respond to them, I have to go by the names that are on the attendance list. That's what I have to go by.
Right.
Because when I'm calling it out, as small as it may seem, it could be potentially a liability if I call out a name that is not their legal name, and who knows, what kind of insult could be taken regardless of what they say. There's lots of ruses out there, so I play it safe, and I just go by the names that are on the list.
Right. I think anybody would.
Right. So what happened this one particular day at East, I was there. I had a very, very good class of kids that were there at the time, very jovial group. Some of them were in the AF Air Force ROTC program. I was talking to them about being a veteran and so forth, and we had a good talk about the kind of drills that they go through and so forth and so on. So one student had come in earlier. It was a boy, all right?
Okay.
XY chromosome. Looked like he was about maybe 5'10", 5'11", perhaps 6 feet at the most, dressed in a dress, and he comes in and he tries to preempt, and he says, are you the substitute? Are you doing attendance? I go by X, Y, and Z. And again, I said to him, hey, I have to go by what names are on the attendance list.
Right. So
he leaves in a huff. He comes back with another teacher, a woman teacher, who says, she says to me, I forgot how she said. She said something about me refusing to call him by his preferred name or something. And again, I explained to her, I said, I go by the attendance list, which you're going to hear multiple times, but
sure.
That is my response every single time. I go by what is on the attendance list. So she proceeds to theologize to me about how I was dead naming and how she referred to him. He's standing right next to her. He is standing right next to her. And this woman teacher is referring to this boy as a she.
Right.
She preferred his two dads, which was a dead giveaway, to his confusion. His two dads have said that they prefer to have him called whatever the name was.
Okay.
And I stood my ground. I said, I'm going by the name that is on the attendance list when I call the attendance. So she says, you're refusing to whatever. She's giving me a directive. This is a teacher who's giving me a directive as if she is some type of authority. And even if it was, which I'll get to at the end, the whole affront of the whole thing. But, I essentially said no. Then it escalated to 2 more levels where the vice principal came. I told him the same thing. Then eventually the principal...
Let me just interrupt you real quick, Gene. So at any time, were you like raising your voice? Were you at all being aggressive in this thing, or were you just trying to have a conversation with these people?
No. I was even keeled about it. I was firm in my speech to them. It's like, and I was very consistent. I said this is a legal document, and I have to go by the names that are on the attendance list. So it wasn't like, no, I'm not doing that. Get out of my face. No, it wasn't anything like that.
Okay.
I wasn't belligerent with anybody, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, well, you got to ask questions like that because, in a situation like that, there is going to be an accusation somewhere that somebody raised their voice or got defensive or something like that. So that's just why I asked the question. So what happened? What happened next?
Oh, so what happened after that? Then apparently the principal was out of the building because he revealed that when he came around to the room. So he came around with the vice principal in tow, and he declared to me that I refused to essentially follow an order. Now, I was in the Air Force. I only take orders from officers. Right? So he said a teacher gave you something to the effect that she gave me an order to address this boy a certain way, and you refused, and then the vice principal, and then he asked me the same question. And then I presented to him. I said, yes, the same thing that I said previously 3 times before. I said, this is a legal document that I have to sign my name upon, and, I have to go by the attendance. So he mentioned something about the naming of the boy, and I said, personally, I think this is a violation of my First Amendment right, because now he's compelling me that I have to go through this speech pattern with whoever this child is.
Okay.
And I believe I mentioned to him something that if it's that serious that the parents want, then they can just go down to downtown and change it legally. If it's that serious to you, then why go through all the rigmarole? Just head downtown, fill out some paperwork, go to court, whatever, and change it legally.
Right.
Wouldn't that be the simple solution to it? Instead of having people jump through hoops to try and figure out whether your name is Diamonds and Pearls, Ray-Ban sunglasses, whatever you want to call yourself, that's fine. Make it legal. Commit to it.
Well, see, part of the agenda is not just to, allow someone to call themselves, Cynthia when their name is Carl. I mean, that's only part of it. The other side of it is forcing you to legitimize what they're saying and comply with what you're being told. And the reason why you got such pushback is you didn't comply.
Right. So, and that's exactly it. Well, just to end that story, after I said that, no, I'm going to go by the names that are on the roster, the attendance list, and the principal tried to refute it and say, no, it's not a legal document. And I'm like, no, if I have to sign my name on it, sign and date it, and hand it in, yes, it is a legal document. So then he said to me, okay, you will be paid for the rest of the day. And he said something to the effect that you're not part of, or you can't be or go along with East culture or something like that, with the culture at East. So his vice principal escorted me out of the building. But that is how the cultural Marxists and the tyrants, that is how they implement their agenda without it being law, by forcing people to comply to things that are not law or lawful, however you want to describe it.
Right.
They get people to surrender because, as I was talking to this particular group last night that I had the fortune to hang out with, self-censorship and things like that are how people cave, and they end up surrendering to the tyranny by going along with it.
Absolutely.
And I also said to him, I said something to the effect, well, this isn't law. This is not a law that I have to go, with this thing here of whatever his name is. Because again, the legal document is not his opinion of what he thinks his name is. The legal document is the attendance list that has their names in black and white, that has been registered with the school district. That is the legal understanding of what this boy's name is. So again, if his two dads or whatever, if they want to commit to it, then go down to the courthouse and have it fixed. But yeah, that is the fix that is that they force people into this under the radar.
Yeah.
So it's not a law, but if they can get you to think that it is something that you will get in trouble for, you will comply for fear.
Well, it's the very thing that the legislature has been trying to fight for quite a long time. None of this has any place in a school. It doesn't have anything to do with teaching them reading, writing, a little bit of science, and some mathematics. It's all about Marxist indoctrination. And I mean, that's literally what it is. And a lot of it's perpetrated by the teachers union. I'm not surprised in the least of your treatment at East High School, but I do want to say thanks for snapping that picture over at Cheyenne South. That's what we got to do to fight back against these people, is to just expose what they're doing and, let parents finally see, hey, this is what they're doing to your kid when they're at school. So thank you very much for that, Gene.
Yeah. If I may add also is that, I watch a lot of folks on YouTube who are conservative broadcasters, and one of the common things, and this is for everybody out there that's listening, is fear. Being afraid to speak up is what allows them to feel as though they can dominate the conversation. So back in New Jersey, I knew quite a few left-leaning individuals, and they would always, gaslight, oh, we need to have a conversation about X, Y, and Z. And my response would be, no, you don't want to have a conversation. You want to dominate the conversation. So what happens is when people are fearful to even voice an opinion, you don't have to be as outspoken as I am, but at least voice your opinion and say, no, that's not right.
Right.
Something as simple as that, to let the other side know that there is opposition, because otherwise they feel confidently, which at this point rightly, that they are the dominant force because no one is resisting them. I mean, not to knock this, but it's almost like an echo chamber. So unless there are others outside of this purview who are able to hear this and say, hey, I see this thing and I realize this is not right. This is indoctrination of the kids, which is exactly what it is, because, again, they're able to cull the children away from their parents. Again, we have to understand where the parents are coming from as well, because the parents may not know better either. They may have been part of the generations that were indoctrinated. So we can't just assume that the parents don't know, because they could be part of it as well. So there's a societal infection with this that has gone back at least 20 years, where, again, as I said, they only had to get across that threshold to say, so what?
Yeah.
And then that's what broke the dam open.
Yep, exactly right. And I know a lot of people will look at that survey that, again, it's posted at my website. They'll look at it and they'll say, well, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that it's against the law, that it's indoctrinating your kids, and
right.
that it's something that they tried to hide from you. So anyway, Gene, thank you very much for taking the time to visit with me this evening. I really appreciate it. And keep up the fight, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
All right, have a good night, man. That'll about do it for today's installment of the program. Have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll talk again on Monday, where we're going to go through all of this Reed Reisner business, the deceptive posts, the media reaction to it, and what all of the Wyoming conservative politicians are saying about it. So it should be a fun episode. As always, all the documents that I mentioned during this episode, from that flyer and the superintendent's statement, are available on the show content page at cowboystatepolitics.com. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio, I'm David Iverson, and this is the one and only Cowboy State Politics.